All right, beautiful ones. So once again, welcome to the Naturopathic Herbalist Certification Study Group. For this month of September, we're going to be talking about tasty fall wild edible plants and find out what's popping in your region. I know that we are all from all of the different regions of the U.S., Northwest, Midwest, Northeast, Southwest, and Southeast. So I tried to cover all of the different regions. So if you do decide to get out and see what's happening as the fall comes in this month, you'll have an idea of some things to look for. And you might find a little bit of food. You know, I love that saying that food is free if we just know how to go out and use the vegetation that nature provides for us constantly. All right, so the first ones that we're going to look at is acorns. And one thing that I decided to do in this presentation was also to give you a little bit of info on how you can prepare these particular wild edibles. So with the acorn, I think everybody knows what an acorn is because all regions of the country have oak trees. So with acorns, they all right, so with your acorns, they're the nuts that come down from the oak tree. When they when you go and gather your acorns, all of them are edible, but they do take some processing. And so you gather yourself a little bowl, pop the little tops off of them, crack them open, and you can, and when you crack them open, there's like a little skin around them, around the actual nut inside. And you take that skin off because that one is kind of bitter. And then you can blend it, strain it, dehydrate it, and you can make things like acorn cookies, or you can actually make acorn bread. Now, let me tell you something. The first time I heard about acorn bread was in one of Octavia Butler's books that she wrote. And I had to try acorn bread because she made it sound so delicious in her book. And it's okay. You know, it would not be my first choice in how to make a bread, but it's definitely okay. And if you just want to be adventurous, you can definitely find acorns pretty much everywhere. Okay. The next one is the pine nuts. Now, me being a Texas girl, I grew up around pine trees and playing with these things, but I never saw any of my grandparents or aunties or, anybody that I spent time with in the country, in the hills and the plains of Texas. I never saw anybody prepare anything with the pine cones. So, one of the most favorite things, and I've included it here in a picture, is I like to make pine nut dressing for the salad. Okay. And the way that you get the pine cones, and again, everywhere pine trees grow, you can find these. You take them. In Texas, we have the little tight forms, and then we have the great big ones too. And you just take them and you just kind of beat or kind of peel it to get the seeds out. And then you peel the hull from around the seed, and your pine cones are there and ready. Literally, you can roast them, you can eat them raw. You can make like a pine cone hummus. or a pine cone, or a pine nut, excuse me, pate. So there are a lot of ways. Now, if you're going to make a pate, you're going to be collecting a whole bunch of them. Okay, so, you know, if you're making a dressing, all you need is just a little handful of them. And if I had to estimate, that will probably be about 15 pine cones that you get the nuts out of. Okay, so enjoy that. Again, pine cones are everywhere, and it would just be good, you know, even if you don't do anything with what you go and harvest, but put it in your compost, or, you know, give it to the plants that you have around your house. It would just be good to get out and have that experience of collecting your wild edibles. Now, this one, the plantain, it grows from coast to coast. Okay. And so it grows from coast to coast. I remember I was up in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm taking my morning walk, and I forget what neighborhood I was in, but this plantain was just growing right up out of the sidewalk. And so plantain, of course, the leaves are edible, and you can use the leaves for salad. Okay. And I would say go for the more bigger leaves, because the smaller ones have a tendency to be a little bit more bitter than the larger leaves. But don't get the larger leaves if the bugs have already eaten into them. It kind of does something to them to where they don't taste as nice. So it would be good to get the fresh large ones from the plantain plant as well. Okay, so have some fun collecting plantain. And, you know, if you're on that lesson and you're going out to make your herbal applications, plantain is also good as a tea and also a tincture as well too. Next is the prickly pear cactus. For those of you that are in the hot desert regions, especially Southwest, West Coast, going towards from Texas on over to California, the prickly pear cactus is a very common food. It's a very common vegetable. You can pretty much find a lot of these wild edibles in the stores too. So if you did want to just try them because it sounds interesting, you could possibly even just go to your produce section and find these, especially in the ethnic grocery stores, the Indian grocery stores, the Asian grocery stores, the Hispanic grocery stores, the African grocery stores. You would be able to find a lot of these wild edibles because it's something that we would normally eat. So as you can see here with the prickly pear cactus, you can eat both the fruit off the top, the red part, and you can also eat the actual cactus. Okay, of course, you've got to clean the stickers off of it, and you can saute it, you can grill it, and it has a very distinct flavor, but it's a nice flavor though. Okay, and you might find yourself enjoying that and having a different type of vegetable to eat as well. Now, this one is the rose hip. Everybody has seen rose hip before, because these are the little fruits that grows on the rose plants. And not only do they grow on the wild rose plants, they also grow on your cultivated rose plants as well. So your rose hips, you can do all kinds of nice things with rose hips, like making a soup. I love this little picture. So I captured it off of the what is it, the Google images. You can do rose hip jelly, syrup, tea. You can make a rose hip sauce for your veggies, and you can also do a rose hip seasoning as well. And one of the very highly nutritional aspects of rose hips is that it is excellent in vitamin C, just as much vitamin C as you will find in your citrus fruits. Now, next is Chufa. And Chufa, pretty much it grows in all of the southern regions. So it's a tropical grass nut. Okay, so it is actually a ground nut. And you probably see these very thick, great, strong looking blades of grass coming up with these small little white or yellow leaves coming out, flowers coming out at the top. So Chufa is actually known around the world as tiger nuts, okay? And here in Ghana, tiger nuts is a very big industry. One of the main things that we do with tiger nuts here in Ghana is we make a tiger nut powder. And it's very popular because it is said here among herbalists and in the Ghanaian culture that it's good for male virility. Okay, so you see tiger nuts being sold all the time, everywhere, in their raw form, in their roasted form, as tiger nut powder, and also tiger nut milk. But you will find tiger nuts, or chufa as you call it in the United States, growing pretty much everywhere. The next time you see this type of blade of grass with these little yellow flowers sticking off the top, just go over and pull some up out of the ground. And you will probably see that it has these, and I wanted you to see how it looks when you pull it out of the ground with this middle picture. But it makes a very nutritious plant-based milk alternative as well too. So try that out too. Then you have your mullein. Mullein is also a wild edible that sprouts around water areas. You know, they grow really, really tall. And one of the main ways of taking in mullein, of course, in the fall, you want to rev up your respiratory system, especially for that cold weather that's getting ready to come in. So drinking it as a tea is one of the favorite ways of taking in mullein. But if you are familiar with being around any of the tropical areas, mullein grows around ponds, lakes. And again, they grow really, really tall and have these beautiful yellow flowers on them. So check out some mullein too. All right, now here's one of my favorites. I love pecans, and we don't grow pecans here in Ghana. So, you know, if and when I do get a chance to go to the US, I always love to have my little pecan pâtés. One of my favorite ways of making pecan pâté is with sun-dried tomatoes. Absolutely love it. So as you can see here, the pecan trees, if you're familiar with them, they grow in most regions. They're very, very tall, and they have this like moss-like leaves that come off of it as well. And you can make all kinds of things with pecans. I'm quite sure you're familiar with pecan pies and caramel pecans in bread and just pecans in everything. Okay, pecan brittles, pecans on top of your cobblers. So yeah, by all means, pecans is one of those Pecans is one of those ready-made seasonal nuts that always come into fruition in the fall for the harvest. Now, in the southeast and the southwest area, we have a nice little fruit that's called persimmons, and they grow in the tropical regions of the world too. And they grow, the trees don't get very, very big, not like pecan trees, but they grow plenty of fruit. And with the persimmons, what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you pick them, you don't pick them until they're soft and ripe. Otherwise, they can be really, really bitter, and you don't want to bite into a bitter persimmon. But a lot of times with persimmons, you can dehydrate it and just eat it as a dried fruit. You can also make a persimmon pudding, or you can saute it. This is a nice way that I like to have persimmons, is to just saute them and just have it as a side dish for your dinner. You can also use them in salads, soups. You can also bake cookies. And if you've never had persimmon pancakes, I would definitely recommend blending a little bit of persimmon or juicing a little bit of persimmon inside of your pancake mix. Very, very nice and sweet. And it's unlike any other kind of pancake you've had before. So persimmons are very nice for that as well. They come in the fall. Now, we also have saw palmetto, and let me not put the berry on there, because what I'm talking about here is not the berry. The saw palmetto, which you will find in the southwest and the southeast regions of the United States, you can find these growing in the wild. Okay, now in California, they've been having a problem with people, picking the berries from the saw palmetto plants and, using them for their own commercial use, harvesting them off of public land. And so it's like a big thing now to where they're trying to stop people from collecting the saw palmetto berries. That's only in Florida. But everywhere else, like in Texas, where I'm from, oh my goodness, on the north side of Houston, where my family lives, we have a lot of wooded areas that are still in existence because we have several state parks and city parks that are around there, and saw palmetto just grows wild. So this little white part that you see here on the screen, if you go and dig up the root of the saw palmetto plant and you cut it open, this little white part is actually edible, and it tastes a lot like artichokes. So if you ever find yourself in the wild and you've got saw palmettos around and you're hungry, you can roast these up, or you can literally, if you find one that's not too bitter, that's on a nice size, big plant, then you could eat it just like that right out of the ground. Okay, but you do have to process it by cutting it open and getting this nice little soft center part out of it. Okay, and again, you can find these growing everywhere in the South, Southeast, and the Southwest. And they actually grow here in Ghana too. And I do like collecting the berries and grinding them up for some of the things that I need as well. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some garlic mustard. This is a very, it's not, it has a little bit of sour to it, kind of like mustard does. And so it's often used, and it grows across the whole northern part of the US. and you will find these little leaves. They will kind of remind you of how peppermint leaves look, but they have these little bitty white flowers on top, and it's more like a ground cover. Although they grow up maybe about 2 or 3 feet high, but it's a very beautiful ground cover. And sometimes in the northern regions, you will find people using these in their yards as ground cover. But the leaves make a very nice pesto. And the leaves make a very nice pesto. However, it is an acquired taste. So you may not really like it at first, and you may want to season it up a little bit. But if you're really good at making pestos, this would be a nice addition to your pastas. You know, like you see here, someone has put it on their potatoes. And you can also put it in your veggie wraps, okay? So garlic mustard plant is also a very nice edible. And remember, you can also find these in your grocery stores if you just want to try them in recipes, but you don't want to go out and forage for them. That's another thing that I like about these edibles. You know, some of the grocers have picked up on them and they will have them available. Yummy, yummy burdock root. Why am I saying yummy, yummy burdock root? Because the best burdock root dish that I have ever had was in a restaurant in Harlem, New York, right there on the edge of Manhattan and Harlem. That was based on the southern Louisiana dish, like crawfish etouffee. Now, being a southern girl myself and being from Texas, you know, we grew up with Louisiana cooking too. So when I saw that on the seasoned vegan menu, I was like, oh my goodness, how is she making a vegan burdock root with burdock root etouffee? And when I tasted it, it was just a showstopper for me. I truly enjoyed it. And what you do is you know, I had to try it for myself too. Because I'm not in New York too often, but that dish, oh, it's good. So you get your favorite etouffee recipe, whatever that is, especially if you're used to cooking etouffees. And all that you do is you boil your burdock root until it's nice and tender, and you toss it in, and then you saute it into your etouffee gravy. Okay, so it's not difficult at all. You can use the burdock root, you can slice it up and put it in your stir fries. You can use it as a base for your wraps. You can slice it up and put it on your salads. Very nutritious. They grow low to the ground. And you know, burdock root is a thistle. Okay, so you do need to cook it before you eat it. I don't recommend eating the burdock root in your dishes raw, because it does have a bitter taste to it. But when you cook it, it takes that bitterness away, and it tastes really good. How it tastes like crawfish, I have no idea, but it does. Okay, maybe it's really just the etouffee and the texture, because it has that nice rubbery texture like crawfish does. Okay, so try out some burdock root, and you can see burdock root growing just like weeds. Okay, it doesn't take a lot for burdock to get up and sprouting. So even if you are cultivating your herb garden, you get your burdock seeds, just like comfrey, it'll just start blooming up all these big, beautiful leaves. Okay. Next is your hawthorn berries. Again, this grows across the northern regions of the United States. Hawthorn berries are very easy to identify. It has these little wide flowery type leaves, and most people will make sweet things with the hawthorn berries, like jellies, jams, syrups, things like that. So if you're into berries, this is another very good one. Okay. Purslane. Purslane is also, it's in the portulaca family. And the thing about purslane is you don't use purslane to have a whole dish of purslane. You always use it as like a garnish. So like you see in this little salad right here, they've just kind of put a few on the side. In the soup, they've kind of put, dropped a little bit of it in the soup. So it has a bittersweet taste and flavor. So it can go from bitter to sweet. And the one of the reasons why you don't have it as like a whole dish, as if you would saute up some spinach, is because purslane is very slimy like okra. So it is nutritious, it is edible, but unless you like slimy greens, you're not gonna do a whole pot of purslane. So you use it as a garnish in your sautés and your soups. If you don't like okra, then you're probably not gonna like purslane either. Okay. All right. So for those of you in the Northwest, the Midwest, and the Northeast, your arrowhead roots, these little bulbs, you just kind of use like a potato, and you could put it in your stews. You can roast it. So any way that you would have a potato, you can use it. But it's very starchy, okay? And it does have its own distinct flavor, which is, again, an acquired taste. But these leaves in the middle is what you are looking for. It actually looks like an arrowhead, and it has these very small flowers that come up. And so if you find some nice, and they're usually all in clusters, and you will find them growing near bodies of water, your rivers, your ponds, your lakes, your streams, etc. And so you dig down in the ground and you pull up the roots, the bulbs that are can fit in the palm of your hands, nice size. Those are usually the ones that are ripe. You don't want to get them too small, and you don't want to get them too big. Just about the ones that fit in the palm of your hand are the ones that are just right for eating. All right, now you have some elderberries. Elderberries came to the spotlight when COVID hit for us because, people were saying that it was a good way to boost your immune system. So across the northern regions of the US, if you have access in the wild to some elderberries, as you can see, they grow on a bush and they come out as either white or pink flowers before they fruit into the berries. And with the elderberries, you want to always cook them. Elderberries are not the kind of berries that you just pop in your mouth because of the acids that they have within them. They're very nutritious, they're very medicinal, but If you don't cook them, they can give you an upset stomach, and they can also give you diarrhea. So make sure that if you do go out and gather your elderberries, make sure that you cook them. That's why, you always see them in a syrup where they've been cooked. And you don't see very many elderberry tinctures that are raw, okay? So it's usually the cooked elderberries. You know what? I forgot to tell you something about the hawthorn berries, okay? The hawthorn berries are, you cannot eat the seed. And I made a note to make sure that I told you this, but the hawthorn berries, the seed is poisonous. So you don't want to eat the seed of the hawthorn berry. Okay, just reiterating that for you, just in case you do decide to go out and gather those. Now, in most regions of the United States, you have the sweet briar rose or the sweet Brier rose. They spell it with either an A or an E. And with the sweet briar rose, this is, you can get rose hips off of the sweet briar rose bush as well. So, but the flowers are also a very nice edible flower too, as well. So you can use it as a tea, okay? Or you can use it as a garnishment on an edible garnishment on your foods. If you're catering something or putting together a nice dinner. And as you can see, they literally grow as a rose bush because that's what they are. So the sweet briar is also edible if you choose to eat the seed or the flowers. Okay.